Joel, the holidays are a blast, but the financial hangover, that can be a huge bummer. If you are out there and you're dreading the new statement email that reveals the massive balance that you may have racked up, well, you could use our help.
That's right. I'm Joel.
And I am Matt.
And we're from the How To Money podcast. Our show is all about helping you make sense of your personal finances so you can ditch your pesky credit card debt once and for all, make real progress on other crucial financial goals that you've got, and just feel more in control of your money in general.
You know it. For money advice without the judgment and jargon, listen to How to Money on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Jason Alexander.
And I'm Peter Tilden.
And together, our mission
on the Really Know Really podcast
is to get the true answers to life's baffling questions like
why the bathroom door doesn't go all the way to the floor, what's in the museum of failure, and does your dog truly love you? We have the answer.
Go to reallyknowreally.com
and register to win $500, a guest spot on our podcast, or a limited edition signed Jason bobblehead. The Really Know Really podcast.
Follow us on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Episode 473, Become a Better Financial Decision Maker with Jessica Moorhouse.
Welcome to the Frugal Friends podcast, where you'll learn to save money, embrace simplicity, and live a richer life. Here are your hosts, Jen and Jill.
Welcome to the Frugal Friends podcast. My name is Jen.
My name is Jill.
And Happy New Year to all of our faithful listeners. If you are joining us for the first time, welcome. We're so excited to have you with us.
This is an exciting time, 2025, so much hope for the future. And we're kicking it off by helping you identify how you make financial decisions, ways that you can make better financial decisions, and really mostly some of the reasons why we can find ourselves in situations where we're not making the best decisions with our money. And Jessica Moorhouse is the kindest, most knowledgeable person to be talking with us about this. I had so many takeaways from it, so I'm excited to share it with you all.
Yeah, it was so fun. But first, this episode is brought to you by Your Last Chance. I know it's only January 3rd, but hear me when I say this is your last chance to pre-order our new book, Buy What You Love Without Going Broke, and get access to our last live class on January 29th, which is a guided walkthrough to create your 2025 spending plan. This workshop is free to all pre-orderers, but you only have until January 7th to get access to it. So head to buywhatyoulovebook.com, order from your favorite bookseller, welovebookshop.org, submit a screenshot of your receipt on that same page, buywhatyoulovebook.com, and you will get access to the workshop on January 29th. And in the meantime, you'll get access to the live workshop we just did on how to make a 1-year meal plan.
We're going into the little bit of the backlog. You only have
a few more days to get access to those workshops. So buywhatyoulovebook.com.
And it's considered pre-order, but you will get it to your house this week if you do pre-order it now. So
I believe so.
I mean,
depends on where you buy it from. Yeah. But if you're interested in your financial decision making or your decision making in general, we have a lot of archive episodes for you. We have episode 462, Willpower and Self-Control in Spending. Episode 437, How to Kick Burnout to the Curb with Jess Massey. And then episode 404, which I really like, asking questions that lead to better spending decisions with Jeff Wetzler. He wrote a fantastic book on how to ask better questions. And that is the root of a lot of our decisions. We ask ourselves unhealthy questions that lead to untrue thoughts, and those thoughts lead to poor financial decisions, or really any decisions in general. And that's really what Jessica is helping us with right now. She is a She is a sought-after money expert and accredited financial counselor in Canada. So I know this is all going to be relevant to any country, but especially if you're in Canada, she hosts the More Money podcast, and it is a fantastic resource for anybody based in Canada. And her debut book is titled Everything But Money: The Hidden Barriers Between You and Financial Freedom. And let's not waste any time. Let's get into it.
Let's do it.
Jessica, welcome to the Frugal Friends podcast. We are stoked to have you.
Thanks for having me.
This is a really exciting conversation, I think. Whenever we can kind of get into more of the nuances and some of the ways that we think and behave around money, I think, well, we love it. Our audience loves
Absolutely.
it. So with that, Jessica, I wonder if you can kind of kick us off in talking about some of these smaller financial decisions. Like, we know that we make these big decisions about money occasionally, but what would you say are some of the smaller financial decisions that we make every day that we may or may not think about or realize is even tied to money?
I'd say one thing is how we speak to ourselves about money. So we all have an internal dialogue, and we have one specifically when it comes to money. So whenever you get your paycheck, or you're talking to friends or family about money, you're at the cash register, you got an internal monologue. And most of the time it's probably, unless you're in an amazing financial space and you come from a place of security and everything nice, you're going to have a very negative relationship with money. And that will, impact probably all of those day-to-day decisions. Like, should I buy, organic or not? Oh, I can't afford organic. It's so expensive. And so I think a lot of those little things come down to how are we talking to ourselves about money? And I say this not as a judgment, because this is literally something that we all have, myself included. My internal dialogue when it comes to money is very negative, even though I wrote a book on how to heal. It's a practice. So you have to practice at it to get better at it and be kinder to yourself. And it's easier said than done. But I'd say that's probably a place that most people would not really think to start. Because, when you mentioned, what are little things we can do? My mind goes, well, just buying that latte, No, it has nothing to do with what you're purchasing or what you're actually doing with your money. I think a lot of it has to do with how do you feel? How does money make you feel? And then how is that driving any of your financial decisions, whether that's what am I going to get for lunch today? Or should I put money into my investments? Or should I put it towards debt? Or should I go for that, promotion or a new job to make a little bit more money? Or maybe I should just stay where I'm at because it's safe and secure and I don't want to rock the boat and things like that. Those are the things that have they're little things, have a huge impact on your financial future.
The money story piece is so interesting to me, and even how you kind of highlighted the way that we might look at different financial decisions differently. It makes me think about, I've noticed more recently how I will place certain value on some things, but not on others. Like, I'll easily drop $55 on a dinner out and not really think about it. But if you were to tell me I've got to pay $55 for a single article of clothing, I'm like, that's so much money.
Even
the clothing should last me way longer than the
that should
food
be an
is.
easier, if you're just looking at numbers.
Yeah.
Which is why we talk so much about neutrality in looking at your spending. Because yes, that is something, Jessica, that speaks to me. My whole life, and this is, I think, something just really currently I'm struggling with in this current season is, in my mind, I always say I don't make enough money. No, it doesn't matter how much money I make, or even more importantly, how much my expenses are compared to what I'm earning in the current season. I always have the narrative, I don't make enough money. And that mindset just naturally has nothing to do with spending, but it naturally permeates every spending decision I make, because I don't make enough money for organic milk.
I didn't realize it was the lightning round already.
I know. I'm just
being vulnerable.
What I'm hearing is not just I don't make enough, is that I don't deserve that.
Oh,
Yeah, I know. Right? That's what I heard. I don't deserve
but
organic.
I think what I do deserve is very little, small treats.
Yeah.
I deserve the latte. I deserve something small because of its smallness.
Yeah.
And the big things, I wouldn't say I don't deserve them, but I would say I quote unquote don't need them, which translates to the same idea. Like
Yeah.
it just need just sounds like better, more justifiable.
Yeah.
But it really means like I think I don't deserve it.
And I think that's probably, there's based on probably so many things, how you grew up, but also, like me, you entered the personal finance world. There was a lot of big voices that said, hey, this is what you're supposed to do, ABC, if you want to be good with money. And a lot of it was the language like, do you need it or do you want it? If it's a want, that's the connotation is that's bad. Need, oh, well, that's important. That's a necessity. That's okay to spend your money in that way. And so there's like this automatic, if you want something, there's something wrong with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that results in all of it, like making these these spending decisions and justifying it as a need, even though it really is a want. And then we have these wants and we don't fulfill them because they seem superfluous and we feel guilty. It's
there's
so
also the
messed up.
issue of defining a need because we need food, clothing, shelter, but can the clothing be nice and quality and kind to the labor force? And can the food be tasty? And then you start to get into, well, that's going to cost more. And then now is it considered a luxury? So it's really hard to even draw a clear line on those things. So it's clearly not even the best metric.
No. Yeah, no, it's funny. One thing, for example, there's always a way to be like, yeah, but there's a way to do it cheaper or for free. And I feel like that's also very ingrained in me that I have to be like, it's okay if I spend more money on this thing that I want or need and can afford comfortably. For example, for years when I was in my 20s, I was pretty, lower income, didn't make too much money. And so I made a lot of choices from that place of scarcity. I only have this amount of money. And, to work out, I'd do everything for free. I'd get tapes or, CDs, DVDs from the library or from a friend, and I'd burn them and I'd do them at home or I'd go running outside. Anything that was like free or very cheap. And now, cut to me, my late 30s, I spend a couple $100 a month on this group fitness program that is, 5 minutes from my house. It's very community-based. It makes me feel so happy. And I actually go and actually work out and have a great time. It brings a lot of value and happiness into my life. But it took me a while to be like, it's okay that you spend this money on this thing, because the internal dialogue was, but there's a way you can go to the gym and get a $50 a month, membership. Why are you spending this kind of money? Like, who do you think and all those, who do you think you are? Blah, 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 blah. And you're like, that needs to go. That voice is not serving me. It is just making me feel bad. And likely if I wasn't part of this fitness thing, this is the only thing I've stuck to for almost 2 years. And I've actually seen, physical results, me getting more muscle. And again, just like my mood is better compared to me trying to do it at home. And I just don't have the self-motivation and stuff like that. So it's like, I don't know why we have these things. Well, I do know why we have these things, but why we continue to let these voices, these ideas of ourselves, these money stories we've built over these years continue to drive us in a certain path where we think if I'm cheaper and just spend less, and I'm super frugal, then, I'll be better. But it's like, frugal isn't the same as cheapness. Like frugal is really, I define it as spending within your means, but also specifically within your values. And so I think frugal is a positive thing because it's being intentional with your money. But I think sometimes we get caught in the trap of just like, no, I shouldn't spend. And that comes from, for me, that comes from my family. It comes from my ancestors. Historically, we've been poor for hundreds of years. It comes from, the money story that I internalized from things growing up. And then voices that I was drawn to as an adult learning about personal personal finance, probably because they were confirming the things that I already thought about myself. So I was drawn to some of those really kind of nasty voices that were shame-based. And then I had to unlearn some of those really unhealthy habits and thoughts about myself in my 30s, because I'm like, oh, that's actually, I would never talk to someone like that. So why am I talking to myself like that or letting that person talk to me like that?
Yeah. So you talk about these like voices that are teaching us personal finance. And one thing that I've always thought about when I hear people, specifically really people of affluence talking about it, is there's good financial decisions and bad financial decisions. And in reality, we always talk about, especially with spending decisions, but really any financial decision, whether it be debt or whatever, that the decisions themselves are neutral. There's no good or bad, but there are ones that are good to move you forward in that season and ones that may limit you in the season or in further seasons. So I like how you talk about financial decisions as being good, not good or bad, but like good versus poor. Can you like give us a little bit about how you define the markers of good versus poor financial decisions?
Yeah, I totally agree. There's ones that are like, this is a good one. Like if you do this, you're going to see the benefits. Sometimes, typically not for a while. And then there's ones that they're less good, basically. But sometimes you need to make those decisions to either learn a lesson or you're just not in a headspace where you can do that really the best financial decision. Like, for example, people say, oh, you've got to start investing right away at 18. And I knew that when I was in my early 20s learning about this. I just couldn't do it. And I think part of that was because I didn't really have the investing knowledge I needed. But also under that, I did not think that I had the intelligence or the confidence or just the skill set to actually do it. So really, it was a confidence issue. It was something more internal. And so I just did not have the capacity to make a better decision. If I could go back in time with the knowledge and confidence I have now, oh, sure, I would have started investing in index funds at 18. But I just didn't have the tools and the capacity at that point. So I don't think that's a bad financial decision. I still did pretty well. I lived within my means. I was a good saver. I did all these really good things. But could I have made a better decision? Sure. But I did the best I can. And that's one thing I learned this. It's something that stuck with me for years when I became a financial counselor was when you're working with someone, you've got to remember when they come to you where they're at, they're doing the best they actually can. Most people are doing the best they can, but maybe they could be doing better if they had all these other things, skills, knowledge, motivation, a support system, all these kind of elements. But typically we don't have those yet. And so, could we be doing better? Yes. But I think most of us are doing the best we can.
Yeah. I think that that's such a good way to think about coming into this new year. In January, we are trying to we're trying to better ourselves, right? And so often we think that to make big changes, to see big results, we need to make big sweeping lifestyle changes. And so often, that sets us up for failure every time because not all of those lifestyle changes are available to you immediately.
Exactly.
They have to be built up. There's skills that have to be built up. There's curation of your environment that has to be built up. And we so take for granted these smaller changes, right up front and how important they are.
Yeah.
2025 is bound to be a fascinating year. It's going to be filled with money challenges and opportunities. I'm Joel.
Ooh, and I am Matt.
And we're the hosts of How to Money. We want to be with you every step of the way in your financial journey this year, offering the information and insights you need to thrive financially.
Yeah, whether you find yourself up to your eyeballs in student loan debt, or you've got a sky-high credit card balance because you went a little overboard with the holiday spending, or maybe you're looking to optimize your retirement accounts so you can retire early. Well, How to Money will help you to change your relationship with money so you can stress less and grow your net worth.
That's right. How to Money comes out 3 times a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, for money advice without the judgment and jargon. Listen to How to Money on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Jason Alexander.
And I'm Peter Tilden.
And together
On the Really No Really podcast,
our mission is to get the true answers to life's baffling questions like,
why they refuse to make the bathroom door go all the way to the floor.
we got the answer.
Will space junk block your cell signal? The astronaut who almost drowned during a spacewalk gives us the answer. We talk with the scientist who figured out if your dog truly loves you, and the one bringing back the woolly mammoth. Plus, does Tom Cruise really do his own stunts? His stuntman reveals the answer. And you never know who's going to drop by.
Mr. Brian Cranston is with us
How
today.
are you
Hello, my
two?
friend.
Wayne Knight about Jurassic Park.
Wayne Knight, welcome to Really
God.
No Really, sir.
Bless you all.
Hello, Newman. And you never know when Howie Mandel might just stop by to talk about judging.
Really? That's the opening?
Really No Really. Yeah, really.
No, really.
Go to reallynoreally.com.
And register to win $500, a guest spot on our podcast, or a limited edition signed Jason bobblehead.
It's called Really No Really, and you can find it on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
So I'm curious to hear from you, Jessica, on some of the things that you think can prevent us from making good financial decisions. You've mentioned a couple of them, but I'm kind of curious, like how might we know whether or not we're even making good financial? I mean, you mentioned when you were younger, you kind of had the knowledge, but there were these other things holding you back. What might be some of those markers? What might prevent us from kind of moving forward here?
I mean, that's, ultimately the big chunk of my book, which is really helping you explore the hidden barriers in your own life to reaching whatever version of financial freedom means to you. And they come in many different forms. Some people have all of them, some people don't. But where we start is, of course, your upbringing and the stories you told yourself or your parents told you or that you witnessed. And most of the time, especially if you come from a family where there was an extreme poverty, extreme wealth, or just extreme views when it comes to money, you would either adopt those same habits, patterns, views, or you would go the opposite direction and rebel. And I see that all the time. Someone comes from poverty, they become a big spender because they were never allowed to spend. There was no money, and maybe their family was very restrictive and frugal. Or the other side, where they came from wealth and they had some negative feelings about what that meant, and so they became a minimalist, and so they rebelled against that. So one of the biggest barriers is really figuring out where am I coming from, and what story do I want to tell instead? Because likely the story you're telling yourself right now is not serving you. So that's always where I like to start, is do that in kind of internal investigation with you, your childhood, and kind of your upbringing. That will reveal a lot. And I did the exact same thing for myself. The other one that doesn't get discussed enough, but it's becoming a little bit more talked about, is the idea of internal trauma, whether that is a lived trauma that, came from childhood or, early development that has nothing to do with money, but is impacting your finances. Or it could be something specific to finance, such as you saw your dad go bankrupt and it really, had a huge negative impact on the family. That is going to have an effect on you when you're an adult, such as being afraid of debt, or I'm never going to be in that situation, and so I'm going to live my life in this way. And so that's a big part of the book that I was really interested in exploring, because I hadn't really read too much about that, and it was interesting also exploring my own traumatic experiences to see I did not realize that had this big impact on me. And that's been driving me for decades. Who knew? And so until you find out what's going on kind of under the hood, so to speak, you're going to continue a cycle you don't know how to get out of. And speaking more about the trauma portion, how that can manifest is if you had a life experience that was traumatic, and then there are certain triggers that exist in the real world, which could be as simple as, a face, a voice, a smell, a sound, what have you. That trigger will then dysregulate you emotionally, which means that you will then be in a situation of fight or flight, or fawn or freeze. Basically, you're going to be in a state where you really shouldn't be making financial decisions, but sometimes you will. And when you come from a place of this emotional dysregulation where you're acting on emotions instead of logic, you're going to be making some mistakes. You're going to be buying things that you shouldn't be buying. You're going to be giving away money you shouldn't be giving away. You're going to be making these choices that when you're back into a state of peace and calm and regulation, you're going to be like, shoot, why'd I do that? That is not helping me. And now I'm in a worse space. And so one thing we talk about in the book is recognizing those. And of course, I always suggest working with a professional therapist to kind of dig deep. But there's tools that you can do right away to when you recognize, oh, I feel, in my body, I'm not my peaceful, calm self. I'm dysregulated. How do we get back? How do we get grounded again? How do we get back to that space where we could step back and be like, you know what? I'm not going to make that decision right now. I'm going to wait and then be in a better headspace to make that decision. Because when I look back at most of my, quote unquote, not so great, or bad financial decisions, it was always coming from a place of emotion that had nothing to do with money, but I was triggered in some way. And then I did something with my money. And then I'm like, why did I do that? Once I was in a better headspace. So that's, I think, a part that we need to really investigate. Because what I've learned is most people don't think they have any trauma, because trauma sounds very intense. It's like something really catastrophic happened to you. It can be as simple as, were you bullied in school? A lot of people were. If you're carrying that with you and you haven't healed from that, haven't worked through that, it is going to have an impact on you and your finances growing up. It absolutely is.
Yeah, it impacts how you spend money because it's a lack of self-esteem, self-confidence from that. Mm-hmm. And we see a lot of people spending on fitness, beauty, skincare, all of these things as a result of small traumas like that that are not directly connected to finances at all.
And you may not make that connection initially until you start doing that kind of introspection. I mean, that was what I did while writing the book. Obviously, and when I initially pitched this book idea, I didn't think that I had as big of a personal connection to some of these topics as I did. I'm like, oh, I'm going to write, from a perspective of I'm doing the research and I'm going to, then I'm like, no, I have to go to therapy. I have to do some digging for myself. And the things that I uncovered, it literally changed my life. I know that sounds like, oh, wow. It really, really did. Because I discovered about myself, why am I so obsessed with money? It's my career now. I love it. I love talking about it. But sometimes it's not healthy. Why is that? And I discovered from myself, based off of, some childhood experiences, that I was using money as kind of a surrogate and what came with money, such as, attention and some acknowledgement and things like that, and career advancement. I was using that as a way to get love and attention that in certain circumstances growing up, I felt like I was lacking. And I'm like, I'm almost 40 and I'm still making choices based off of something from my childhood. That's wild. I can't go into the next decade with that headspace. I need to do something about it. And I think a lot of people can relate to that when they really think about it. They're like, oh, right. It was this and this and this. And I've been holding on to those. And I have not really done the work to figure out what's going on and how can I heal. So I'm going to keep on doing these patterns until, forever, until I figure out how to get out of them.
Yeah, same. I found while I was writing the book that I tied my financial success to growing up. I had a lot of book smarts, but I wasn't super popular. I was nerdy. I wasn't super attractive in that crowd. So the only thing valuable about me was the success I had academically. And I just transferred it to financial success in adulthood. And that was writing a book, man. It'll bring
you learn a lot about yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about steps people can take in 2025 to start making better financial decisions.
So the good thing about my book is that it does have a bunch of exercises. So after the chapter, you can go through the exercise and start doing the work piece by piece. Because sometimes, when I get asked that question, so how do we fix this? It's like, that is a big, I don't have one solution. And it can feel like a big life changer, a big thing. So we kind of chunkify things into identifying your current money story, figuring out, what kind of life experiences you've had that have maybe impacted you later on. There's also a really great chapter about generational trauma and how we've actually probably inherited. If you haven't personally experienced something traumatic, but someone in your family has, it may have been transferred over to you epigenetically, which is really crazy that I've also discovered about myself. There's certain things that we have, and you're like, I can't place it. And then you find out, like I had talked to my grandpa years ago. I had him on my podcast, thank goodness, and recorded it. It was such an important thing that ended up being in the book, where he told me that he came from poverty, goodness, and his brother was an alcoholic and also a gambler, and he lost the family home in a bet gone wrong. And because of that, my grandpa was very resistant to alcohol, but also so afraid of taking any financial risk that was transferred to my mom and then to me. And that's been something I couldn't really place. Like, why am I so afraid to take risks? Or why am I also specifically, I've always had this fear since I was a child of losing the family home. I don't know where that came from. And then when I heard that story, I'm like, ooh, that may have something to do with something. Why do I have this fear of losing my house when my parents have always been financially responsible? My grandparents have. There is someone in the family who lost the family home.
Yeah. And it's not even something that's overtly talked about, but it's made in offhanded comments.
Well, it's not even, it can be that. It can be sometimes you hear things and then they're going to just stick with you. But sometimes it actually is like the epigenetic portion, the science portion is genetically, it can be inherited. You can inherit fear. You can inherit certain feelings that get transferred to you, and you won't know until you do some investigation in your family tree. And there's a great study that was done with rats. I know we're not rats, but they were able to make these rats fear a certain smell. And then they had rat babies, and those babies had the same fear of the smell without being conditioned to. They just inherited that.
Wow.
And it went down generations and generations. And so that's kind of the sciences. And there's studies with humans as well that I won't go into, but there's some just interesting data that shows that these things that are inside you may not have come from you, but they still exist. So doing that internal work to be like, where's this coming from? And now the other elements, of course, of, what are these kind of barriers, what's, preventing you from maybe making some better financial decisions, could just be you being a human. Human behavior is a big component. We have a bunch of biases that run rampant, and most of us are really bad at identifying them and not letting them run the show. But the other element that, again, also doesn't get talked enough about in, lots of personal finance literature out there is, things like privilege and societal injustice. If you are a person of color, a woman, or someone with disabilities, or anything that, makes it more difficult to hit certain financial milestones compared to, honestly, like a cis white man, it is going to be harder for you. And what's difficult is all of the messaging out there is, well, you just have to work harder. It's like, well, the data shows we're already working twice as hard. We're tired. We're really tired. And so we need to also recognize that it's not always you. You're probably doing as best as you can and working super hard. But guess what? There's discrimination in the world that is preventing you from getting that better job. And then so-and-so got it. And you're like, he has less work experience than me. He's not as good as the job. Why do you get the promotion? Oh, it's because he's related to somebody in the company. There's all these different things that we need to recognize, because the one thing that when I was learning about, financial, management and just how to be better with money, a lot of it was just like on me. It's like, well, you need to do this. Well, you need to do this. There's a lot of things that are working against you that have nothing to do with what your actions. A lot of it is just, there's a lot of things in the way. And once you find out what those things are, then there is a path to work through them. And part of that is, figuring out your financial foundation. What do you want to happen? What story do you want to tell yourself moving forward? And then doing that internal work, working with a therapist. Again, I saw like 3 or 4 during the course of writing my book to help you discover what's going on so we can move through them, leave them where they are. We don't need to bring those traumas or those experiences, or even those, there is a way to undo that epigenetic inheritance. You don't have to bring it forward into your life or to your children. There's a way to kind of work through that as well. So there are solutions, but it won't be as obvious what those solutions are until you know what the real problem is.
It's such a helpful reminder that our financial decisions are rarely about math.
No.
And it's much more about who
if it was
we
that
are
easy, we'd
as
all be
people.
better at money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But again, we still just want to run to the budget and tell me how much to spend and what are the numbers on paper. And it doesn't feel great to say, you've got to explore your past and understand
tell me about your
own
childhood.
money story.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
But there's also so much benefit in it too, because what you're describing and the encouragement that you're giving to all of us isn't just for the sake of benefiting our finances. It's going to help all aspects of who we are, which is incredible.
Yeah. Like when the goal should be to not just, be in a better financial situation, build wealth, have more money in the bank, have more a better sense of security. That's great. But you will hit a point, and there's a chapter that talks about money and happiness and wealth, where your finances are fine. You have more than enough. You have, a good situation going on. So you still don't feel good though. You're still not happy. You still have a lot of shame. So it's not just about the numbers and how much money you can accumulate and how great you are at investing or earning, things like that. You've got to pay attention to that internal point, because that was something I wrote about was, I had a goal of, I want to be, me and my husband together, a net worth to be $1 million by the time I turned 35. That was just a goal. I'm like, once we hit that, I think I'll be happy. I think I'll, can relax a little bit. And we hit that and nothing changed. Nothing changed. I was still unhappy. And so then I moved the goalpost. I'm like, hey, 2 million by 40. And we're approaching that. We'll probably hit it. Now, because I've done this internal work, I know if we hit it and we may not, and that's okay, I won't be much happier. I think because what brings me happiness is not a dollar amount, even though I used to think it was for most of my life. What now brings me joy and happiness is the work that I do outside of money, like the actual work that I do, hanging out with friends and family and having those social connections, which is huge, doing activities that make me happy that aren't about productivity. Like so many people are like, oh, I started this hobby. And people are like, you can monetize that. Just puzzle or knit or have a good time. Like just do your hobbies and enjoy them. And that's what I've realized. I've restructured my life over these past 2 years to focus on what is actually going to give me long-term happiness, and stop focusing on these numbers that time and time again, it's going to give you happiness for a split second. And then you're going to be like, next, what's next? Now what?
Yeah. So true. So beautiful.
I have one last question about the social injustices portion, because I know you talk about this in your book. And I know that we have a lot of people listening to this show. 85% are women. A lot are in those, like disadvantaged groups. Like, do you have an action step or a quick, like a mindset shift or something? What do you say to someone who's like, well, I'm definitely not, trying to become a millionaire by 35. Like, I know that that's not like my thing. Like, I'm just trying to make it. I'm just trying to make it do something. I'm just starting just today.
That was one of the hardest parts, because the whole book was like, okay, let's identify the problem and let me offer you solutions. I'm like, how do I offer solutions to like racism? I'm like, well, I don't have the solution for that. That's kind of a big task. But no matter what kind of discrimination you may face, and the unfortunate thing is the discrimination, sometimes it is a one-on-one, someone personally is discriminated, but sometimes it's the institution. It is your entire company you work for. It is whatever institution that you're dealing with that is way bigger than you, that you as an individual can't really do anything to change it. But we can make change in groups. We can, use our voice and advocate for ourselves and other people, be allies for people who, I know as women, we talk often about, the wage gap. And it's like, well, we women have been talking about this for a while. We need our allies. We need our men out there who understand this to also vocalize and make change, because sometimes we're still not heard despite the data. And so that's kind of what I want to kind of make sure people understood is this is really a group effort that we need to continue and have those discussions too with younger generations, our children, grandchildren, so we can be making decisions. That's the one exciting thing I see with Gen Z is they are making moves. And sometimes it's too fast for even me. I'm like, whoa. But I'm excited that they're making the change and they're being kind of unapologetic about some of the things that they will not stand for, which is really exciting. And then the other component is, and kind of at the end of the chapter, I kind of give this idea of you have to remember that you, especially if you are experiencing discrimination, you can't let them win. You cannot give up, because what's the alternative if you do? Definitely nothing will happen and things may get worse. And so you need to always, I interviewed this professor. It was funny how I connected with him. He was a special guest lecturer in this course my husband was taking. My husband at the time was taking a course in social work. And it was just like all of these elements that are like, he's not doing it anymore. He's not taking courses anymore, but he thought he'd give it a try. And then he attended one of the lessons, and this professor was talking. And just when I think about it, I'm like, it's kind of crazy how is connected to this professor. It's like my husband shouldn't have even been in that course. But this guy, he told his story of, being originally from Africa and, migrating to or immigrating to Canada and having a really difficult time in terms of being accepted in the community. But also he was applying to get a master's at one of the universities. And he already had like 4 degrees, or he already had several degrees. He was a very smart man, but he wanted to get his master's in social work. And he was rejected, not because of his education or his experience. He was absolutely qualified. It's because the person who was at the admissions was a racist. And he, just immediately didn't even look at the application, but saw his name. It was not English, and he rejected him. And at first he was like, should I just give up? And luckily that admissions person moved on, left that school, and then someone else was put in that place. And actually, and he fought for himself. He's like, please look at my application again. I don't think it was given a fair shot. And he was accepted. And then he kept on doing school, and now he's a professor. And it was just such an amazing story of resilience. Of he could have walked away and just thrown his hands up and like, well, this is not meant to be. How can I fight the system that is working against me? But he fought, and now he is making sure that a lot more people can get into school, not based off of their name or their background, but based off of their experience and education and qualifications, which is exciting. So that's just one thing I always remind myself is no matter how hard or hopeless it feels like, we need to fight for ourselves, but also fight for others. And that's what always, like, why I keep on talking about, privilege and discrimination is like, yeah, we're not done talking about it. It's still not fixed. It might be even getting worse. We don't know what's ahead. Yeah. So we need to keep on fighting.
It can be discouraging to make changes that may or may not benefit you.
Yeah.
But knowing that there will be some kind of benefit in the long run does make it worth it.
It's such a sad, disheartening story that you're sharing here, and also one of resilience. But I think the reminder throughout is that there can be elements that are working against us, and it's not that we're not doing enough, which, speaking of our money stories, can become embedded. And I think recognizing where we end and others in society begin and how that is impacting us can help us to know where we sit in the grand scheme of things, and help us to know then how to behave and respond as a result, and not internalize all of these things as if they were our fault. So I appreciate that reminder.
Yeah.
One way I respond, and it may or may not be appropriate,
But I do it every single week. The bill of the week.
That's right. It's time for the best minute of your entire week. Maybe a baby was born and his name is William. Maybe you paid off your mortgage. Maybe your car died and you're happy to not have to pay that bill anymore. Duck bills, Buffalo Bills, Bill Clinton. This is the bill of the week.
Jessica, every week we invite our listeners and or our guests to share with us their bill for the week, and we are interested in hearing yours.
So this is something that I have a bill that I'm happy about or not happy about, or because I've got
whatever you want.
First thing that
choose.
pops into your mind is the right thing.
I'd say one thing I'm proud of. So it was recently Black Friday, and I do this every Black Friday. I get, dysregulated emotionally because everyone's talking about all the deals. I put a bunch of stuff in online carts, and then I literally get too anxious and I don't buy anything. I'm like, I can't make a decision. I don't know. This is too big of a decision, so I don't buy anything. But one thing that me and my husband do like clockwork every year is renegotiate our phone bill. Mm-hmm. So we have 2 cell phones, and we were able to talk to, I don't know if it was our current provider. No, maybe it was our current provider, but sometimes we shop around at other providers. And we were able to basically, for like $10 more than we're currently paying, both get the new iPhone. And I'm like, this is awesome. This is a great deal. I love a good deal. So I'm happy to pay that phone bill now because now I have a new iPhone.
Yes. Good for you.
We love renegotiation. It can take time. It's one of those
he was on the phone for
that-
like 6 hours.
Yeah.
But I'm like, you know what?
That's
Worth
it. That's the investment that it takes. 100%.
We don't love it, but it can help.
Exactly.
If you all listening have a bill that you want to share, if it's about renegotiating, if it's about lowering your bill, if it's about getting free stuff like an iPhone, if it's about a good deal, or your name is Bill, frugalfriendspodcast.com/bill. Leave us your bill. We can't wait for
2025 is bound to be a fascinating year. It's going to be filled with money challenges and opportunities. I'm Joel.
Ooh, and I am Matt.
And we're the hosts of How to Money. We want to be with you every step of the way in your financial journey this year, offering the information and insights you need to thrive financially.
Yeah, whether you find yourself up to your eyeballs in student loan debt, or you've got a sky-high credit card balance because you went a little overboard with the holiday spending, or maybe you're looking to optimize your retirement accounts so you can retire early. Well, How to Money will help you to change your relationship with money so you can stress less and grow your net worth.
That's right. How to Money comes out 3 times a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, for money advice without the judgment and jargon. Listen to How to Money on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Jason Alexander.
And I'm Peter Tilden.
And together,
On the Really No Really podcast,
our mission is to get the true answers to life's baffling questions like,
why they refuse to make the bathroom door go all the way to the floor.
we got the answer.
Will space junk block your cell signal? The astronaut who almost drowned during a spacewalk gives us the answer. We talk with the scientist who figured out if your dog truly loves you, and the one bringing back the woolly mammoth. Plus, does Tom Cruise really do his own stunts? His stuntman reveals the answer. And you never know who's going to drop by.
Mr. Brian Cranston is with us
How
today.
are you
Hello, my
two?
friend.
Wayne Knight about Jurassic Park.
Wayne Knight, welcome to Really No
God.
Really, sir.
Bless you all.
Hello, Newman. And you never know when Howie Mandel might just stop by to talk about judging.
Really? That's the opening?
Really No Really. Yeah, really.
No, really.
Go to reallynoreally.com.
And register to win $500, a guest spot on our podcast, or a limited edition signed Jason bobblehead.
It's called Really No Really, and you can find it on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
for it. And now it's time for the lightning round.
Pew, pew. All right. So for today, what's a recent big financial decision you've had to make?
Oh my gosh, what's a big I should have been more prepared. You sent me these questions in advance.
I actually did change this at the last minute. It's so unfair.
Like, what is a big financial decision that we made? I mean, we made one kind of also Black Friday, decided, you know what, we need a vacation. So we did drop some thousands of dollars on a vacation in the spring. So that was like a big decision. We had like, are we going to do this? Are we going to do this? And I'm like, should I press the button? Should I press the button? So that was like probably the most recent big financial decision.
But it sounds like you're paying in advance for this vacation.
I sure am.
Upcoming.
I got 6 months of just reminding myself, remember though, we're going on vacation.
Yeah, it's the anticipation of the vacation that is just as good, if not better than the actual vacation.
Well, I write about this in the book. There's data that shows that is the before and after a vacation are the best parts.
I don't know. I just went on vacation and the during was
okay. Good.
The pinnacle. Holy
good.
smokes.
Well, she's a weird traveler, though. For most of us, it's the anticipation.
The anticipation.
Where
is
are
my
you
favorite
going?
part. We're going to Dominican Republic. Never been.
Nice.
So just doing a resort kind of thing, easy. I just need something where I'm like, I can show
relax.
up and not think. So,
absolutely.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
For me, it hasn't been great over here in St. Petersburg post
Our
hurricanes.
answers are similar. They are not cool.
Yeah, a lot of damage happened to the house. And so for us, it was figuring out how we want to allocate not only the money that we have set aside kind of for emergencies and house projects, but I mean, really initially, do we even want to file a claim with insurance? Discovered absolutely what we need done is way far and beyond our deductible. But yeah, then how do we want to then allocate the money that the insurance gives us? Because it's not going to actually cover everything that we need to have done. So these have been some big, weighty decisions, but I think too, like pacing myself has been helpful. And that's one of those things that I've learned over time is nothing will happen all at once. And even when things do feel complete, come tomorrow, they won't be complete anymore. Something else will need to be done again. So just really pacing myself with all of the kind of new projects that were dropped on us, literally by the wind.
Yeah. Similarly, we have to get hurricane-proof windows. Hurricanes.
Where do you guys live again? Where's St. Pete?
St. Pete, Florida.
Florida. Oh, yeah. There's a lot of hurricanes, I hear.
Especially this year. And so we have gotten a grant from the state in order to get some hurricane-proof windows.
Amazing.
But it's not going to cover. We essentially have to spend $10,000 in order to get $10,000, and that is this is a house that we've been renovating in order to eventually sell. And with the hurricanes, having these windows, it feels like essential now, even though it will not increase the price we were able to sell it for. With the grant, we'll essentially just recoup the cost, but it is a lot of money.
Isn't it?
It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So on that note, thank you so much, Jessica, for coming on and talking about financial decision making. Where can people get your new book and get more from you?
Yes. So it's called Everything But Money, The Hidden Barriers Between You and Financial Freedom. It's available everywhere, Canada, the US. I am Canadian, but everything I talk about, I just made sure for all my US fans and readers, every example I give is in Canada and also the US. So it is applicable to you because, again, it's not really about money. It's about all the inside stuff. So you can find it, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, wherever you want, or I almost, bookshop.org, support your local bookstore and stuff like that. But you could also just find more information about the book at jessicamoorhouse.com/book. And make sure to also follow me at Jessica I. Moorhouse on Instagram.
Lovely. Thanks so much, Jessica, for having this conversation with us.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so glad that we're starting the year off with financial decisions and especially establishing that our decisions are not good or bad, but truly are just pivots in the direction of life. And it's not like you make a bad decision and it leads a bad way. You make the good decision, it leads the good way. Every decision is just a pivot slightly in one direction. And sometimes that direction can go a little bit more towards the positive side. And sometimes that decision goes a little bit more to what maybe we consider a negative side. But it's never something that's going to ruin you.
I also love the foundation that she laid here of the internal work that is going to help us here and the background understanding of ourselves that can support long-term solid financial decision making. I think, we do love to talk about understanding ourselves, but it's so helpful to have another perspective and a fresh reminder of how important this really is. We can't just skip steps and jump to, we're really good at this. There does have to be some of that introspection that happens.
Yeah.
So.
And just want to reiterate that again, we're at the beginning of January, but it is truly these small incremental changes that will lead to big financial results and big change results. So there may be a lot of tenacity and motivation right now to make big sweeping changes to get big sweeping results. And truly, that's not where it starts. It starts with a lot of this inner work. And we continue to do the inner work, and we're making these small incremental changes along with that work. That's what's going to get you to a really different place than you are right now this time in 2026.
And some of that incremental decisions that you make could be buying her book, buying our book, Buy What You Love Without Going Broke. Buy What You Love book.com.
Could be, if you wanted it to be that, that could be one of the changes.
Thank you all so much for being here, for listening to us, for even leaving us reviews like this one from Sewing Buttons. Listening to the backlog brings learning and laughs. They say, I have been catching up on older episodes of this show and I'm learning a lot. I always listen all the way through to the end of the show chat because I am here as much for entertainment as I am for frugal mindset shifts.
Sewing buttons? We don't talk about that.
Yeah, the post show, what? Today, I was on the romance scams episode 380, and while the episode content was kind of scary and sad, the end of the show chat about the Super Bowl and listening to Jen and Jill make really vague guesses about Taylor and Travis was hilarious. I feel like I've never not known most of the details of their relationship, even though I'm not really a Swiftie or a Chiefs fan. Hearing two people who were so underinformed about them was super refreshing. Thanks for being willing to just make guesses about random pop culture and for your lovely, friendly interactions. You two are a pleasure to listen to, but I will admit the first episode when I heard Jill's scary lightning round voice, I was genuinely startled. And that's it.
Thank you. Me too. Thank you for listening. And I've never fully recovered. If you enjoyed the show, if you enjoy the underinformed anything, or if you enjoy the lightning round noises, please leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or a comment on Spotify and a rating on Spotify. We love reading them, and they help people figure out if this show is the right move for them, because it's not right for everyone in every season. And we want people to know that and not waste their time.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. See you next time.
Frugal Friends is produced by Eric Sirianni.
Okay.
I still don't know a lot about Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, but they are still together.
Are they? Did you just look it up or are you making that up?
Oh, no, I'm not making it up. I just know that.
Wow.
Yeah. And
I'm truly not sure because it was so
the Super Bowl was
everywhere.
Almost a year ago at this point.
And now I'm just like, I don't know. Where are they?
So they are together. Travis Kelce and his brother host a podcast, and his brother has retired from football. His name is Jason.
Yep.
And they seem so nice, just nice people, and very secure in their masculinity. And Taylor Swift just seems like a nice person.
Maybe.
I think.
Yeah.
So, and
yeah.
On Black Friday, she released a book from the Eras tour that a lot of people stood in line to get. I don't think anybody stood in line at a store for anything except at Target to get that book.
Oh, because that was the only place they were selling it, wasn't it?
I would assume so.
Creating scarcity. She's no dummy.
She isn't.
Wow. Mm-hmm. That's wild.
Which is why I
hope people wait in line for our book.
Maybe. I don't
you
know.
think
You
they
don't
will?
need to. They don't need to. They can just pre-order
Yeah,
it
but
at
let's just imagine it.
buywhatoulovebook.com
Yeah.
and get it.
And are we talking about this? We are making up our own book tour.
Oh my gosh.
So
we'll
if
talk
you
about that. Let's talk about that in the
Florida,
next episode.
we will. Yeah.
Because I
But
got to go
just
pick up my kid.
Get it in your mind, though. If you live in Florida or Eastern Pennsylvania,
We will be.
We'll be
and
there
if you
soon.
pre-order, bring your book and we'll sign it.
Joel, the holidays are a blast, but the financial hangover, that can be a huge bummer. If you are out there and you're dreading the new statement email that reveals the massive balance that you may have racked up, well, you could use our help.
That's right. I'm Joel.
And I am Matt.
And we're from the How To Money podcast. Our show is all about helping you make sense of your personal finances so you can ditch your pesky credit card debt once and for all, make real progress on other crucial financial goals that you've got, and just feel more in control of your money in general.
You know it. For money advice without the judgment and jargon, listen to How to Money on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Jason Alexander.
And I'm Peter Tilden.
And together, our mission
On the Really No Really podcast
is to get the true answers to life's baffling questions like,
why the bathroom door doesn't go all the way to the floor, what's in the museum of failure, and does your dog truly love you? We have the answer.
go to reallynoreally.com.
And register to win $500, a guest spot on our podcast, or a limited edition signed Jason bobblehead. The Really No Really podcast.
Follow us on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.